Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers and sisters. Welcome to, I have a repeating song. That's not what I told it to do. Apologies for that. Right, we have got the Grid Finder pre-season event for the EnduroKa Winter Series as part of the MSVR racing calendar. Racing may well be done in its real life, guys, but we will see what fun and festivities we can get up to in the winter break. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be your commentator throughout this evening's festivities. Only a few cars, unfortunately, have joined us, but we only need one or two to have a good race. So we will see what we can get up to. Now, first things, I do need to point out that is my commentary position. Car number 284 is where I am sat, so that is not what that one will not move. So we currently have 4 that are with us. That is number 93, that is leaving the way, which I think is Mark. Yes, it is. So who has joined us for tonight? Let's have a look and see what is what we've got. We're in qualifying and people are already trying to one-up each other. So apologies for the bar appearing on the right-hand side. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the map over slightly. So if that does keep popping up, there we go. Then that shouldn't obscure the map. Now, I myself do not handle the broadcast usually. It's because we don't have a dedicated broadcast team for this specific event. So I myself, as the commentator, am handling that for you lovely people tonight. So we have got 2 races here at Alton Park International. For these wonderful little Ford Ks, the Mark 1s, around about 70 horsepower, weighs about as much as a damp flannel, and are going to give us some amazing action, I am sure. All about conservation of momentum, this series. Still a relatively young series in the MSVR lineup, but has proven to be going from strength to strength with its sign up. We do have a fifth competitor that is joining us. So let us see who we have got. Now, as is usually the way, unfortunately, we have had a few people drop out, which it happens now. I completely understand that. Strangely, someone has signed up as Peugeot 308, which I'm not entirely sure who they're supposed to be. But interestingly, their email has the word crackers in it, which I think is absolutely superb. So let's have a look at who we have currently got. So the blue and yellow machine that we have got in centre view is Daniel Jim. That is currently qualified in the top of the tree because, of course, we haven't had... Whoops, that's a little bit lively coming through. Well, actually, it's probably a wise idea. I point out which version of Alton Park we are going to be racing on. Like I say, it is the international version. However, we are not using the Hislops chicane. So we basically bypass Hislops and reappear at Knickerbrook. Now, we do have one car listed as Fun Time. He's asked me to refer to him as Veni, V-E-N-I. So if I forget, my apologies. So we have got him coming through to complete another lap. So there's Daniel Jim that is currently at the top of the tree with a 2:15.728. Currently second is Vagelis Georgotis. Again, apologies for, I'm sure, completely butchering your name. That's a very, very lively MSVR livery for the EnduroKa series with a 2:27.356. Nope, that's a 2:16.978. Daniel Jim getting into the 2:10s. But he's chasing Vini quite hard. Marky 895 is actually Mark Hancock in the number 93 machine. With a 401, I think it's fair to say that there is more improvement to be found, as he himself is just coming up to Britain's. A little bit delicately, so just finding his way with these visual representations of the EnduroKAs. Now, I will say, this is where we deviate very slightly from the standard recognised international layer. As you can see, we're going to banzai straight past Hislops and reappear at Knickerbrook. So Mark currently in third. So we have Jake, that is Jake Constant, in the lemon and lime flavoured 107 car. Yet to get a lap on the board. And as a Fun Time, number 247. Oops, getting somewhat lively. Going through Clay Hill. So 5 competitors currently. Now, we did have a few more that took to the track in the pre-qualifying. Let's show my age. In the practice session earlier on. Now, I know Andy Greer-Hardy, who was going to be with us, who's an LDR performance tuning regular, sadly has pulled out. Nathan Williams did set a time, but I've not seen Nathan Williams reappear. So may well just be the 5 that we have now. We are in the qualifying session for race number 1, the grid of which will be formed, of course, by the times that we see. Someone's bouncing off the rev limiter there. It'll be Vini just coming through the first turn of Old Hall Corner. Yeah, still yet to get a time on the board. It's right on board actually with Vini. Really bouncing heavily off the rev limiter, keeping the revs very, very high. Different ideas on how to deal with cascades. Go through Lakeside. And up towards Island Bend, where it can all go horribly wrong. Even in EnduroKa, Ace keeps his foot nailed to the floor. Oops, a little bit of lag there. That's what caused that bit of stutter. And then down the gears. Well, certainly down through the speed range for Shellhouse Corner. Then towards the Britain chicane. Just going to double check that all is well on my side of the stable. Yes, it is from what I can see. Now into Britain's. Oops. Yeah, so quite a nice slide on that. Daniel Jim returning to the pits, having set his current top qualifying time of 2:10.383. And Savini then goes through uses the grass on the outside line just to open up the entrance to Knickerbrook. Now Clay Hill. And screaming as much as these little Fords do towards or past the water tower into Druids, where many a lap, virtual and real, have been lost. Oh, tiny little slide there, almost flirting too much with the grass. And then towards Lodge. I know I've binned many a virtual lap here at Lodge and Deerleap, and then that is a completed lap. Is it a valid one? As Jogotis gets up into third. And still no time from Vini, unfortunately. So he's got another 6 minutes though. See what he is able to do. Daniel Jim in the pits, not moving from that particular spot. So he seems content to stay there for the time being. There is Jake Wardle in the lemon and lime accented car. Sorry, Jake, that's how I am going to refer to that car. Also takes part in the Fiesta Junior Championship. A racing series designed for the very, very young, brave teenagers. Just makes me realise how old I am and how young he is. But there we go. So currently sits in second with a 2:13.012. Now the qualifying times may not necessarily be the be-all and end-all of the series, of this particular session. As I think Daniel Jim has disconnected from the session he has for some reason. Hopefully he's able to reappear. We certainly won't want to lose any more. Being that Daniel Jim is currently our pole sitter, he certainly won't want to lose out on the opportunity to convert that into a strong result. Let's follow young Mr. Wardle through the remainder of his lap at the 2:13.012, his current time, as he comes towards Lodge. And he is somebody behind him. I can't quite tell who it is, and that's why it is very easy to bin all of your hard work as you come down through Lodge Court. It is really quite a drop. That's Mark that is behind him. Was that an improvement for Jake? Oh, it sounds like a chewed up gearbox the way that noise happens. 2099, so that puts young Joe. Oh, that's close. That is Vigelis Gigotis that is just coming back out on track in the number 1 car. So that does put. Oh, so beg your pardon. So it's no, it wasn't Jake that set the 209. It was Vini that set the time and has jumped back to the pits. That is one thing you can do in sim racing. I'm sure drivers in the real world would love to have that ability. Now, can Mark Hancock? He's got a couple of cars right ahead of him, so that is Jake Wardle and Georgotis that is directly ahead. Haven't seen Daniel Jim reappear. I'm just going to see if there's been any notification as to what has happened to Daniel Jim. I don't see any notice on what's happened to him, so hopefully he is able to reappear, because he's certainly got pace towards the top to be or certainly be challenged or try and give us an entertaining race for that top spot. Oh, that's too wide. Well held. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of power to these things, but because there's not a lot of weight, they will and also very, very little in the way of tyres. They are pretty much bike wheels on these cars. Then they can still be a bit tricky to recover. We'll see if Mark Hancock is able to get a little bit up the fit. God, that noise from the outside, it sounds like they're chewing up the gearbox. It's not the case at all. Small front-wheel drive cars, like I say, about 70 horsepower and very, very little weight. Not a huge amount you can do to these cars. They are designed to be more of a standardized specification. I suspect that was not an improvement for Mark. It would have been, were it deemed to be legal. Oh, that looked a bit deep going through Old Hall Corner there. So that lap, even with the off, would have been a 2:14.9 for Mark. So certainly in Jake Wardle's kind of pace range at the moment. What was Jake's last? Well, Jake's last lap was actually a 2:12, but he must have gone off the road somewhere because it was deemed an invalid lap. With just a minute left to go of the qualifying session, we will see then if either Daniel Jim is able to return, or if we get any further late or last minute joiners. As we see the lemon and lime car bouncing its way through Hislop's, through Britain's. Up and over the hill, down towards Hislop's. Those which we are straight lining in this version of Alton Park. Sweep through Knickerbrook. Oh, again flirting with the grass. Does manage to keep the car pointing the right way. I've not seen Daniel Jim return, unfortunately, so it may well just be a 4-car lineup for the first race at least. Through Druids comes young Jake Wardle. 2:13.012, still his last legal time. Personal best for the first sector, a session best first sector for Vini as the checker flag is out. So what can Jake Wardle, can he improve on his final run? Answer is he did not. It was a few hundredths slower. Who is everyone else actually came over the line roughly the same time there, except for Vini. You can't park there, sir. Forgelis Georgotus. Again, I'm going to struggle with that name. I do apologise. That would have been a 2:15, but again, not classed. What, does Vini improve on his already pole time of 2:09.4? Again, you can't park there. He did. He did indeed prove it. Still a 2:09.4. So it is fun, as he's put on the board there. It is Vini in the number 247 that will start alongside Daniel Jim if Daniel can reappear. But unfortunately, we don't seem to have the second of our front row qualifiers. And it is going to be Vangelis Giagotis on alongside Jake Wardle, with Mark Hancock at the back of the field. So may well be light in numbers, but we should still have a good race ahead of us in this pre-season event for the EnduroKa Winter Series. So we're just waiting for the session now to tick over to our first of our 2 races for tonight. The second race being a reverse grid race from the finishing result of the first one. Now, I am a big fan of reverse grid races. I know they're not everybody's thing. I absolutely love them personally. Just waiting for the session to tick over, and then we will get the first of our 2 races underway. Now, even in these lightly powered cars, it is still very, very easy, particularly here at a track like Alton Park, to throw it all the way. The drivers were warned in the driver's briefing about, still giving necessary racing room, respecting your standard driver briefing affair. Just because the car is a bit smaller does not mean that driving standards are, should be affected. Session is certainly taking its time to tick on, so apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. we will get underway as quickly as we can. And have a look at the liveries that our competitors have chosen. Now, we would normally enjoy some wonderful custom liveries from Mark Raddenbury and his Positive Perception crew. Unfortunately, these are more standard liveries, or liveries that have been used before, not necessarily customized for this event. But that is what Vini is running. The beige coloured, number 247. Daniel Jim, we did see in the blue and yellow outfit, the treble 8, but has not reappeared, unfortunately. There is Jake Wardle. He has opted for, as I've nicknamed it, the lemon and lime coloured number 107. I love the fact that you have the decals properly on the livery. These are wonderful, wonderful liveries that are available for these EnduroKAs. Geogotis with a almost camouflage-like blue and white affair in the number 1 car. You see the again the decals on the side of his car. Aha! Now that means that we are. Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. I will make that very clear right now. I am not pronouncing that in the slightest. And also Mark is running the blue and white number 93, Mark Hancock. Now this should mean that we've just basically seen the end of qualifying officially. So we should, any moment now, be switching over to our first race of the night. And it's still taking its time. One of those wonderful moments where we as commentators have to fill dead air, but Alton Park, a lovely circuit, been in use since 1953. I was very fortunate enough to be up north, up in Little Budworth in Cheshire, which was actually my first outing at Alton Park. Such a wonderful place. I've driven it a number of times in its virtual guise. I am not fortunate enough to race. I am purely a nuisance in the commentary box. So I can't comment on what this circuit is like in its real life, guys. Although I will say, we switch to the... Yes, you've given me that table already. Can we switch over to the next session? Hopefully so. Well, that is the commentary position. As we can see from not my commentary position. We have switched over to the race. 4 cars take the start. Let's watch from the back. Lights come on. For the first time this evening, it is time to wind them up and to let them go. And it was a storming start from Geogotis in the number 1 machine. Jake Wardle a little bit recalcitrant off the line. But a steady start then from Mark Hancock as well. The race is never won in the first corner. It is only Bindo! Jake, you are really exploring the Cheshire countryside. But does manage to keep his foot in it, as is often the way in these front-wheel drive cars. Keep your foot nailed and let the Scrabble drive pull you out of it. Whoa, that's wide for Geogotis. Has left the door wide open. And where on earth are you going, Mark? Really, again, another exploratory line coming through Cascades. So Jake then, having lost initially that second position to Vangelis, Geogotis has regained it on the inside line of Cascade, and he's now chasing off after the beige number 247, who takes a very, very wide line, almost runs onto the grass on the exit of Shallow Corner. Does keep the number 247 on the straight and narrow. So then, it's Vini from Jake, from Vangelis, from Mark. The running order for these 4. Jake can't just concentrate forwards. He has got Vangelis right behind him. Very, very close as well. Again, very used to maneuvering the front-wheel drive forwards, being a Fiesta Junior competitor. Certainly a relative of Gary Wardle. Looks like that gap up to Vini is growing. 2.2 seconds there or thereabouts between the beige 247 and the lemon lime car. But Jake still with his mirror full of Gigotis. As our competitors now arriving towards Lodge Corner for the first time in anger. Of course, the timing screen being lit up purple by Vini in the lead beige car. Opening gambit at 2:18.4. We will see then how, or if Jake is able to close that gap down. That's a bit of a wide line there from Gigotis. Mark is possibly being a little bit more cautious in the number 93. Didn't see that he had a spin, but may well have struggled a little bit coming through Lodge and Deer Leap for the first time. The field now spread out a little bit. The top three almost equidistant between each other. So EnduroKa is all about conservation of momentum, being in the right gear at the right time, which you can argue any racing series is like that. But when you've got power, you can get away with possibly a wrong gear in the wrong time. But listen to how Vigelis, how low his rev range was coming out of Shallows Corner. Others may choose to have a higher rev range to try and pull these cars out of corners a little bit quicker. A little bit cautious there from Vigelis coming through Britons. Still keeping his car where it needs to be. As that's a disconnection. I don't believe it. A disconnection from the 247. Oh my goodness me. From just setting purple sector 2, he has disconnected, so we have lost our front runner. Oh, I would imagine he'll be gutted about that. He only went into the 209s. Looks set to really, well, I won't say be unchallenged necessarily, but that is a great shame. You never want to see it. Kind of the equivalent of having some kind of technical issue that would force you into the pit lane. So that will give the lead over to Jake Wardle, with 4.3 seconds now separating him and Vigelis Gigotis. See how the lap times are shaping up. So that's shaping up, beg your pardon. So a 2:13.0 for Jake. We did see him get into the 2:12s during qualifying. Also keeping an eye on Discord to see if there's any mention of what's happened to our absent drivers. It's quite a shame, really, that we had about 11 or so sign-ups. A couple did drop out before the session began. It is a bit of a shame when we are only left with a few. But we will do what we can with what we have got. Let's follow Jake then through the remainder of his laps. Just coming out of Shallows Corner down towards Britons. Now I can see Vini is returning to the session. I do believe because he started the race, he would actually be allowed in this version of events to be able to rejoin the race. Internet died somehow. Oops! Jake again going for that exploratory line on the exit of Knickerbrook. Feeling the need to do a bit of lawn mowing. Well, there is the 247. He may as well rejoin the session if he is allowed to do so, which by my understanding he should be able to. Give us a good race nonetheless. May well be on the wrong lap as far as the race is concerned, but still give us some fun. Practice for race number 2. Oh, he's just going to wait for the second race, apparently. That's a bit of a shame. Oh, Mark's in trouble. So he had a big off at Druids, which is very, very easy to do. The grass at any point in this circuit is equally as unforgiving as it is anywhere else. Unfortunate there for Mark, but if he can find the checker flag, he's still on for a podium. EnduroKa must feel a little bit lonely out there. You can just about see in the distance young Jake. That's unfortunately not able to close in. So 2:12.7 then for Jake Wardle. Fastest sector one we've seen. Although we didn't quite see the best from Vini in the 2:47 before he sadly disconnected. The sim racing variant of some kind of technical fault with the car. Never want to see it. But sadly, that is what we've seen. We've got 12 minutes to go. 6-ish laps, give or take. And then it'll be a reverse grid race for race number 2, which will actually put Vini at the front of it. This race, so it will be Vini from Mark, and then Vigelis from Jake. Oh, even in these slower cars, you see that big bump just as they go through Knickerbrook towards Clay Hill. Even in these lightly powered front-wheel drive cars, you can still really upset them. Oh, that's trouble, and that's a spin. That'll be a carbon copy of what Mark Hancock did a lap ago. Although Vigelis was able to get the car spun round. Mark unfortunately came to rest facing the wrong way. Another lap in the books for 107. Lemon and lime coloured car. Is he going to go for a wander? Coming through Old Hall? No, he does keep it on the straight and narrow. Is that a spin from Mark? Or did he, I thought he might have gone through the pit lane for some reason. Keeping the rest very, very high. As far as these little cars can do for Jake that. Coming through Cascades. Through Lakeside Drive now into Island Bend. And then Shell Oils once more. It's actually quite an impressive lean you get in that banked corner. Ah, it looks like Vini has come out. Well, the number 247 has decided to come out and do some laps. May as well do. Get some practice in for race number 2, if nothing else. There's enough room in the field to do so. And we'll get an idea of where his pace is. We know what his qualifying pace was, which would still hold him at an advantage. Unless Jake is able to, or unless any of our competitors are able to find a little bit more. And flirting with the grass, opening up the line. Bit dangerous to do, because you are then leaning on the tyres that are embedded in grass. But we will see what pace Vini is able to put out there. Fastest sector 2 already by the number 247 of a 27.1. Really got the hang of these EnduroKas. See what time he is able to get on the board. He was in the 209s during qualifying. That was obviously his outlap, because there's a 5-minute. But that was also a purple sector 3 of the 33.4. So could look likely to give Jake Wardle a bit of a run for his money. And keeping the revs very, very high, just as Jake was a lap ago, going through Cascades. With only a few laps left, I would think that Vini's likely to just let the race finish rather than actually challenge Jake, because if Jake comes off the road, that 20-second gap back to Vigelis is going to absolutely evaporate. There's no points, there's no championship for this particular event. So this is the pre-season race that will then be starting on the 11th of January for a 3-race series. We get to enjoy the Cheshire countryside here for the EnduroKa series. You come down towards Knickerbrook once more. You wouldn't necessarily do that in its real life, guys. They are kind of flirting a bit with the sim racing physics. I guess you could do it a little bit. Personal best sector 2 for Jake there. 27.6. Vini certainly has the measure of pace at this moment in time. He's closing in on young Wardle at the moment. N2, Lodge Corner and Dealey once more. 6.5 minutes to go. 4 laps, I would think, including this one. That lap from the 247 was a 209.9. Now, a 3-second deficit is quite big, even in these lightly powered cars. So Jake may would just opt to let Vini go, or Vini may well just back off for the remainder of the race. We will see when he gets there. As a reminder, there is Vigelis in the number 1 in the camouflaged, or the snow camouflaged car, with Mark Hancock feeling a bit lonely in the number 93. We continue to see young Jake with that beige coloured 247 getting ever bigger in his mirrors. We're actually right in the cockpit. That's our cockpit view, which is not a wonderful camera, I grant you that. You can actually see with the virtual representation of the rear view mirror at the top of the screen what it feels like when you're trying to drive your own race and you've got someone bearing down on you. You see the line difference there, Jake taking or keeping the car within the traditional track limits, whereas Vini is using a bit more of the grass to open up the line coming through Knickerbrook. Mark Hancock, he's getting his pace down a little bit. He was in the 218s during qualifying. It's now 217.6 his last couple of laps. Or sorry, his best lap and his previous lap. Personal bests in sectors 2 and 3. We see quicker of our Ford KAs just coming through Lodge Corner now. They do actually give quite a remarkable amount of body roll, despite the fact they are still very stiffly sprung. 212.3 for Jake Wardle, his personal best of the race. 210.4 from Vini behind. Now this will be interesting. Is Vini going to actually try and challenge here? Is he going to just let the lemon and lime coloured car ahead of him do his thing? We spin that camera around. We'll get to see what Vini chooses to do here. That is on board from the chasing 247. Oh, that's gone too deep. That wasn't Jake braking too early. That was about right. You saw how far off the road Vini went, and that is how costly a mistake is. Can't just rely on power, but then again, if he was relying on power, he'd have gone into shallow oil's corner much quicker and likely hit the wall. Personal best sector 1 for Jake. Oh, trouble for Mark, unfortunately. He's gone off the road on the way down towards Cascades. That could have been a little bit too wide going through Roll Hall corner. Not able to recover it before getting down through Denton's. But back on his way once again. There's our quick pair. Now coming up towards Druids once again. I love the fact that Assetto Corsa is trying to put blurs on the back of the 247. I fear that's a little bit optimistic for these lovely cars. I mean, they're wonderful to drive. It's a very cost-effective motorsport solution. Single spec series. Oh, that's very, very deep. Just about hanging on to terra firma. And he's opted to come in. Yeah, so that was more a practice run for Vini there. Doesn't actually want to disrupt Jake's race. 2 minutes remain. So likely to be our last lap of this race. Unless Jake just about manages to beat the flag. We will see. Through Cascades once more. Again, keeping the engine race very, very high. Seems to be his chosen line, chosen method of driving. Into Shell Oils once more. Now chooses to keep the engine revs low coming through Shell Oils. Again, that is fairly common from seeing a few drivers go through there in practice. Almost a little bit too deep, but again, that is the expected line coming out of Britons. Three Hislops into Knickerbrook once more. Oh, throws that in really quite early. Flirts with the grass on the outside line coming out of Knickerbrook through Clay Hill, past the water tower, into Druids. 27 seconds on the clock, so might be able to beat it. Or if he backs off, then the flag will fall. Signify the end of our first race of the night. Down into Lodge Corner. No, he's not going to beat the flag. The flag is now being readied for Jake Wardle. So your winner for the first race of this pre-season event for the EnduroKa Winter Series is the 107, the Ford Fiesta Junior Racer of Jake Wardle. And goes exploring on the exit of Old Hall Corner. Why not? Your second place runner is going to be the Snow Camouflage number 1 of Vigelis Gigotis. Bit more cautious coming through Lodge Corner. And over the line he comes to take the second of the podium spots. And Mark Hancock. Bit more cautious coming through Druids. It has bitten him a couple of times already tonight. And then into Lodge and Deer Leap once more. Going to get his lap time down to in the end 2:16.9, so he did get under 2:17 in the end. That's the last of our finishes, with Vini already pulling in the number 247. Jake has already parked the car. And that will signify the end of race number 1 then. So race number 2 will be a reverse grid race from those finishing results. So the tower, as you see it, of course, turned upside down. So it'll be Vini again starting from pole. alongside Mark Hancock. And then Vigelis starting alongside Jake. Unless we do have any last minute joiners, they'll be starting from the back of the field. Let's unfortunately see any other drivers looking to come and join. May well be just the 4 again. But either way, they will put on a show for us nonetheless. Now just got to wait for our competitors to, or for the session to roll over into the race. All 4 of our remaining cars have deemed to have finished. I think Vini is actually deemed to have retired. His is the only one that isn't classed as having finished for some reason, although it should have done because he's in the pit lane after the checkered flag fell. But he's, strictly speaking, ahead of where the checkered flag falls from. Oh, and that's Vigelis returning to pits the direct way. Right, what we will do at this stage, rather than just listening to me waffle on, no, there we go, the change of, just as I was about to say, well, I'll throw to the holding screen, and then it magically deemed the session to have been over. What I'll do is I'll put the holding music on for this particular moment, and we will get underway when we are due to get going. Bear with me, we'll be right back with race number 2. Right, race number 2 then. As the field, the engine revs rise, we wind them up, and we let them go. And again, Jake Wardle a bit slow to get going, and another superb start from Vitelis. Mark just squeezed out there, opting to take the safer line, not absolutely bandsaing the outside line of Old Hall. But that has cost him on the exit of the first turn, but that puts Vini right up front. Even Jake mentioned to me that this second race could well be tricky with the pace that Vini has. Is that going to be side by side with Vigelis though? Oh, it already is side by side. Well, Jake had already wrestled the second position back before this point. So Vigelis trying to put up a bit more of a fight. Jake's going to have the inside line coming through Island Bend and manages to get the overtake done before they get up to Shellow's corner. The Vini now leading the way already. And Vigelis not able to get the inside line, or the exit from Shellow corner quite as quick as he would like into Britain's. Takes it a bit more cautiously than Jake does. Jake able to get a really good exit speed from the Britain chicane. Jake then trying to chase off after Vini, who again started very, very well. bump is really quite vicious coming through Knickerbrook. Once again, it is Vini from Jake, from Vigelis from Mark. Up towards Druids once more. Jake determined to destroy his virtual gearbox. So it takes a steady amount of revs coming through Druids. Probably the gearing not quite allowing him to keep the revs high. Uses as much of the grass as he dares on the inside line coming through Lodge Corner. As the first laps are in the books. All we heard, actually, you just heard that little rumble there of Vini just cutting, or just hitting the grass. Couldn't quite see if it was inside or outside. It was more like the inside line. Even giving his car a bit of a wiggle. Coming down through Denton's. Now into Cascades. Ooh, that didn't go quite as well as he would like now. Now you heard Jake there, he had to shift down. The engine rev's just bogging down a little bit more than he'd like. A flash of the lights there from Jake Wardle. Trying to put Vini off. He can't say he did anything wrong, so that is just a distraction tactic. We'll see if that bears any fruit. Now we did see Vini make a mistake when he rejoined the race in race number 1, where he went way too deep in Shellow's corner, lost the tail of Jake Wardle. See what he's able to do here. Mark actually closing in a little bit on the back of Vigelis Geogotis. Trying a slightly different line there through Britain Chicane. We'll have 2 pairs a little bit closer than we had in the first race. We will see what happens. Again, you see Vini using a lot of the grass there. Okay, trying to cut that inside line to maximize his exit from Knickerbrook. I think it's more down to that entrance, the way that Vini is able just to ride the grass a bit heavier than Jake is able to do. Flirts with the outside of Druids, that's a bit too deep. You know when you commit whether you are going to be too deep or not. I wonder whether Jake knew it. Either way, does manage to keep the car pointed the right way. We've already seen a couple of times tonight that Druids is pretty unforgiving. Mark is keeping pace a little bit closer with Vigelis this race than he was able to do in the previous one. So over the line they come. Their first representative laps on the board. Both of our front runners 2:11s. A 2:13 there from Mark. We saw it was regularly in the 2:16s. Then pulls out a 2:13. So was Mark having some kind of technical difficulty rather than struggling a bit with the pace of the car? Well, if that is the case, then Vigelis is really going to have some work to do. 2:14.1 for the number 1 car and a 2:13.5 for the number 93. So this is, I mean, yes, this is a battle for wooden spoon avoidance, but it is a battle nonetheless. See what Mark Hancock is able to do then as they are coming into Shellow's corner now. Cuts down to the lower line of the banking. And just lets the car roll up towards the top. They come up towards Britain's once again. Bounces over the heavy apex at the beginning of the chicane. Seems a bit more comfortable this time around. Sector 1 best by Vini up front. A gap 3.2 seconds between himself and Jake Wardle. Vigelis oddly in the middle of the track without having to defend from anybody. A different way of approaching Knickerbrook there from Mark in particular. We saw Vini utilising the grass on the outside line on the entry, whereas Mark just came off the throttle a bit more, keep the car a bit more settled, and have a very good exit. It's closing in on Vigelis ahead of him. So the number 1 and the number 93 locked in battle for wooden spoon avoidance. Vini getting back into his strong pace in these cars. It was a 2:10.0 on that lap again, flirting with the grass and the outside line of Old Hall Corner. We heard his car do that before, and that's an overtake. We didn't see it. My apologies there, Mark. He got the run from Lodge Corner and has gone up into third. Now the question is going to be, does Vigelis have an answer? Can he stay in the slipstream? These things are not the most aerodynamic cars in the world. They will still benefit from slipstream from the car ahead. It is only 0.6 between the two. With such light power, you really do need to utilize any advantage you can to help speed the car up. And up front, Vini continues to build his lead over Jake Wardle, but Vigelis Giagotis is closing in a bit, probably a bit quicker than he would have liked. Now, initially kept his engine revs a bit higher than we've heard through Shell Oil's corner. Both him and Mark Hancock out of Shell Oil's. Very, very close together. So Mark Hancock is going to have some defending to do. They come into Britain's. I think that caught Vigelis out a little bit. Looked like he was ready to go a bit deeper into Britain's. Wouldn't necessarily have been quicker on the exit, but really had to slow down to prevent piling into the back of Mark Hancock. We'll see how they take Knickerbrook here. Both are adopting a very similar way, although Mark has gone a little bit deep. Is that going to cost him? Well, it will cost him valuable momentum, but he was able to keep his foot nailed. Has built up a little bit more of a gap. 0.7 as they were coming up towards Druids. Vigelis really hugging both apexes coming through the double right-hander. Now towards Lodge Corner. Vigelis feeling the need to go a little bit early to the apex. Mark didn't really trouble the apex at all. That's another lap in the books. 2:10.1 for Vini, 2:11.7 for Jake, 2:15.4 for Mark, and 2:15.8 for Vigelis. We did see, well, we've already seen in this race 2:14.1 from Vigelis, so Mark isn't just going to dance off into the distance here. And already the number 1 is closing back in on the number 93. Feeling the need to feather the throttle coming through Cascades. He's going to get alongside. Is he coming up through Hilltop? Through Hilltop, wrong side. That's Lakeside, I beg your pardon. It's going to be side by side. That's going to be brave. Both of them going into the corner at the same time. There's Island Bend. That's put the number 1 slightly in front. That's sent Mark wide. Can he get back onto track before he hits the wall? Oh, he just prevents the spin. Now, Vigelis has slowed down there. You see he's actually allowing Mark through. Oh, a bump there from Mark. Letting Vigelis know wasn't quite happy with that, but Vigelis then actually allowing Mark back through into third. Showing some sportsmanship there. Realising that he was a little bit too heavy-handed going through Island Bend. And they will resume their duel then for the last podium spot. As up front, Vini has now built that gap up to 10 seconds. His internet holding off this time. Jake Wardle. The lemon and lime car now feeling a little bit lonely. Wringing the neck of the gearbox to get the car slowed down. See what the times are this time. At 2:10.9 for Vini. It was a 2:15 there for Jake, so he had a pretty rough lap. These two still close together. Vigelis left himself with about 1.6 seconds at the point that he handed that over. That's not a good line through Lodge Corner. And that's given Mark the opportunity to start to build that gap now. It was Mark that was struggling for pace in the first race. Mark Hancock. Oh, has he gone a bit deep there? He has. He went too deep into Old Hall. That's going to cost him. That gap's already come down by almost half a second between himself and Vigelis. Through Cascades, Mark sounded like he was much more cautious coming through the downhill left-hander. And that's allowed Vigelis to cut a second at least out of the gap. You can see Jake Wardle on the other side of the wall. Ooh, is that a little bit late on the brakes? No, Vigelis does manage to get that one turned in. Gets to the apex quite nicely. And exits from Shell Oil Corner a little bit quicker than Mark did on that occasion. Into Britain's once more. Oh, Mark didn't get the second apex. So again, Vigelis really closing in now. Whoa, Jake is on the move. Fastest Sector 1 and fastest Sector 2. As he discovered the secret of this circuit in these cars. He's 1.3 up this time around on his best. Have I just commentator cursed the youngster? We will see. Feeney's still out there. As fastest Sector 3 and fastest lap of the race. Oh no, fastest lap of the race now. A 2:09.6. We didn't see a 2:09 from Jake up till that point. So Jake has unlocked a bit of pace then in the 107. And closing back in on each other is Vigelis on the back of Mark Hancock. It's a shame that Jake has got 10 seconds in between himself and Vini, because those two could really be involved in a great scrap up front. At the moment, eyes are on this battle. Oh, that's very deep from Mark Hancock. That's going to cost him valuable momentum, as he really had to bleed off some pace there to get through Old Hall, now through Denton's down into Cascades. Oh, I wonder whether Vigelis meant to do a move there, but again, Mark left the door wide open on the inside line of Cascades. Really did leave that wide. So was he allowing Vigelis through, or was that a mistake? Was he concentrating too much, which is very easy to do, concentrating too much on the car behind, and then suddenly you look up and you've missed your braking point. Into Shell Oil's corner for both cars now. Mark using all of the runoff on the exit of Shell Oil's corner, getting back into the groove. Perhaps prefers to be the chaser rather than the chased. Ooh, that's a bit deep coming into Britain's. Yeah, he really hit the brakes hard, and that's bogged him down horribly on the exit of the Britain chicane. It's going to give the pace momentum advantage, I should say, back to Vigelis. Back up front, Vini continues to build the lead. 2:09.7, his best lap of the race last time around. A 2:09.8 this time. Jake doing what he can to try and close that gap down, but it's already over 13 seconds. Well, was at the exit of Lodge Corner. 2:11.7. So, an absolutely storming lap last time around. Needs to rediscover what he did. With 4 minutes to go, though, may not be able to close in that gap. But for the last podium spot then, for Wooden Spoon Avoiders, a very defensive line there from Vigelis. Really, I'm not sure he needed to be that defensive, but didn't seem to cost him an awful lot. But that's allowing Mark Hancock to stay in his tyre tracks. Again, Vigelis going very, very defensive. You're not defending anything. Mark is not going to banzai you from that far back. Much closer to the apex this time, and look at the advantage that's given Mark Hancock. Vigelis was a little bit too defensive, didn't quite catch the apex. Hancock does not go side by side, takes a much more cautious approach through Denton's, and does not fancy a side-by-side through Cascades. Keeps his engine rates a bit lower than what we've heard from some of the other drivers. Oh, Vangelis nearly going to the grass on the exit of Cascades. I think that bogged Mark Hancock down a little bit on the exit of the left-hander into Island Bend. Oh, Vangelis nearly going off the road where Mark Hancock did a couple of laps ago. Vangelis taking a deeper line. But that's going to compromise his exit. As Mark Hancock then hugs the apex through Shallow's corner, but does not really pay off an awful lot for him. Into Britain's once more. And no real time gain or lost there as Jake is in the wall. Ah, it's a crash with the environment. So he did hit something. He probably hit one of the bollards. But he's overcooked that one at Druids. And it's going to cost him a bit of time over Vini. 2 minutes 20 on the board, so we will get 2 laps. There's a 2:13.0 for Jake Wardle there. Oh, that was deep from Vangelis! Oh no, that's nowhere Mark could have gone there. Vangelis losing the tail. Could not collect that up. Mark Hancock had nowhere to go. Has chosen to continue. We'll see if there is any significant damage to either cars. It was not necessarily a big impact, but and anyone that has raced the EnduroKa series will know they don't necessarily need a very big impact to really hurt the pace of these cars. Again, they're very, very lightly powered, 70 horsepower or so. Very light. Weighs as much as a damp cloth. But you do not want to be giving yourself any kind of pace disadvantage in these cars. Well, you don't want to do that with any car, but especially when you haven't got the power to overcome that deficit. A minute left on the clock. Really should beat the flag unless he backs off. He's got 15 seconds between himself and Jake. So it shows you real, found a real secret to the lap a couple of laps ago, but was not able to rediscover it again. The fastest lap, at least, will go to Jake unless Vini really pulls a blinder on his final lap. Is he going to slow down to let the flag fall? No, he'd have to slow down quite a bit because there's 30 seconds on the clock still to go. And no. Telling a race driver to slow down, yeah, no chance of that. Final lap then. 19 seconds still on the board, so he couldn't have actually slowed down sufficiently without Jake overtaking him before the checkered flag fell. Now, is Vini going to go for the fastest lap here? Let's ride on board with him and see what he does. Denton's down to Cascade. Keeping the car bouncing off its rev limiter near enough. Seen a few different approaches to Cascades, but the favoured one does seem to be keeping the end roads very, very high through the downhill left-hander. Now coming into Island Bend. Flat out in these cars, we get the approach right. And assumedly you're not punched in the face and sent off towards the wall. Shell oil corner. No major dramas then for our pole sitter, our reverse grid pole sitter. Well, actually both of our pole sitter in both of the races. Really throws it into Britain's. Gets the car nice and steady. 109.3 for the first sector. Quick and consistent has been the name of the game for Vini, along with internet disconnect. Chucks it in. Oops, a bit of a lag moment there. Wow, a 108.5 for Jake in that first sector. Again, a purple sector one. Probably fueled with a bit of frustration and wanders off the road once more on the exit of Knickerbrook. Well, the checker flag is going to greet number 247 unless it goes horribly wrong coming into Lodge. Which it does not do. Jake Wardle capitalising on the disconnect from Vini to take race 1. And the victory for race number 2 goes to the 247 car. A 2:09.9 to see out the session. Jake Wardle in the lemon and lime car. Did a purple sector 1 on this lap. Did not get a purple sector 2. He did get his personal best. Well, no, beg your pardon, a race best on that last lap. A 2:09.657. And once again, goes off into the Cheshire countryside. They're following quite a battle with Vigelis earlier in the race. Bit of paintwork changing between the number 93 and the number 1. Mark Hancock is going to come home in 3rd position. Oh, a little bit too deep there. Comes over the line to see out the podium. And Vigelis put up quite a defence. Bit of a moment into Shallower's corner a few laps ago. Gave the position back and comes home to complete the 4-car race for tonight. And that is going to be it for this pre-season opener. Hopefully we'll see a few more for when we do take to the track in the new year. If I bring up the calendar dates. There we are. Brands Hatch Indy for the opening round of the season on the 11th of January. A popular round for the EnduroKa in particular. Then we head to Donington Park for the full GP layout on the 18th of January. And then we finish in Croft on the 1st of February. And not too long after that is when the doors will open to our circuits once again to rejoin the racing trackside. We hope to see you then. We hope you enjoyed tonight's racing. Until next time, thank you very much. Have a good holiday. And we'll see you next time. Take care.